Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, the lover, also known as the Power to Duelist, back for you with another deck profile. And as you guys showed in a community poll, you guys wanted to see some Earth Machine, but I only have Earth Machine at home for you. Morphtronic, Machina and Karakuri are the pieces that make up this pile of cards, which admittedly isn't great, but I do believe there's some interesting theory here that I do want to talk about. So let's keep the deck profile pretty short and then maybe get into the bits and pieces that I think are pretty interesting, especially for, potential Morphtronic variants you might be considering in the future. We're starting with 3 Self on the main play enabler of the deck. Allows you to, summon those Morphtronics from the deck by, revealing those off the top of your deck after rolling a die. Morphtronic Smartphone, a special summonable level 1 tuner that you can special from your hand by banishing a Morphtronic monster from your graveyard, and similar to Self-on, this rolls a die, excavates cards from the top of your deck, and then you are able to add an excavated Morphtronic card from your deck to your hand. Doesn't summon, but still being able to grab, powerful extenders like Converter or Repair Unit is pretty damn nice. Then we have the third one of the Fon bunch, the newest one, the most infamous one, the Telephone. This guy, in attack position is able to create this kind of loop where if you have one on field, one on grave, you can continuously summon one back from the grave, link the spent one off, and then just summon the linked off one back. The defense position effect gives you some additional graveyard setup if you happen to find this early in your combo and you want to get like a self-on into rotation. You can use that effect to roll a 6-sided die, excavate the top cards of your deck equal to the die roll, and then you are able to send an excavated Morphtronic card to the graveyard if you wish to do so, to potentially, mainly get a self-on into rotation, which I think is pretty neat. Then we're playing 3 copies of Morphtronic Remoten. The only way you will get some guaranteed searching in this deck, outside of Gadget Gamer, I think, specifically, or rather in Morphtronic specifically. Once per turn, while in attack position, you can target a Morphtronic monster in your graveyard, banish the target, and then add a Morphtronic monster from your deck to your hand with the same level as that target. A great way to kind of cycle through some smartphones, get some additional bodies onto the board, and also get some additional searches in for, powerful extenders like the Converter and the Repair Unit mentioned earlier. We're playing 2 copies of Morphtronic Boom Boxen to kind of shore up, Earth Machine numbers, to keep Citadel alive and healthy. I'm playing Boom Boxen in this slot, but you could also play Scannon. It really doesn't make a difference. I like Boom Boxen because I think the double attacking is funny and I have super rares. But you can also just as well play Staple, and it hardly will make a difference. Then, best normal summon of the deck, Gadget Gamer. Allows you to on normal summon add a level 1 machine monster from your deck to your hand, which is basically any, one of the fonts. Most likely will be going for Telephone if you already have that in your grip. You can maybe grab a Cellphone or a second copy of Telephone if you feel like it. In odd cases, this will add a smartphone. It's just nice to potentially be able to add this, but as mentioned before, you in most cases will add Telephone because of the second effect of your Gadget Gamer that allows you to special a Morphtronic tribute this, special a Morphtronic monster from your hand, and then special summon a Gadget Hauler from your hand or deck, essentially putting a level 1 tuner and a level 6 machine onto the field. Gadget Hauler also, as an effect, allows you to send Morphtronic monsters from your hand to the graveyard to have it gain 800 attack, which is pretty cute. Can net you some graveyard setup if you have a Self-on in hand that you can summon back off of your Telephone. But in most cases, Gadget Gamer turns these 2 into a Power Tool Dragon or the level 7 Karakuri Shogun. For the Machina portion, we're playing a Citadel and a Fortress alongside 3 copies of Redeployment to more easily find these. Fortress is crazy in Edison Morphtronics, and pretty neat in this as well. Just an easily special summonable level 7 body is always appreciated in a deck like this. So yeah, that's just kind of nice. Citadel, kind of, I guess a well-known face of Earth Machine. So it's also here. This summons itself back from the graveyard if a face-up Earth Machine monster you control is destroyed, and also is a quick effect board wipe, as this allows you to quick effect target a machine monster you control, destroy both that machine monsters and all monsters your opponent controls with an attack value less than or equal than the monster. Considering that this is printed on a blue eyes white dragon body, essentially, you can blow up quite a lot of monsters with this, which is pretty nice. And the revival effect does come up on follow-up turns if you're able to, of course, find Earth Machines, which you are playing quite a lot of. The Karakuri portion is more, present in the extra deck than the main deck. In the main deck, we are just finding space for a Karakuri Gamma model 4624 Shiro Konishi, and we all thought Morphtronics had weird names. Must attack if able. If this is targeted for an attack, change the battle position of this guy. Will rarely come up, as you're most likely summoning this off of one of your Shoguns and then, just continue synchro climbing. Quick effect, you can banish this guy from your graveyard and then target a Karakuri monster you control and then change that monster's battle position. Has some incidental synergy. Is very nice, of course, for your big Karakuri Shogun, but also for your Life Extreme, as this gives you an additional pop to kind of work with if you're ending on, Braver and the big Karakuri Shogun, which you're trying to do. For powerful one-off spells, we're playing a 1-for-1 to get us to Cell Phone or Telephone, a Monster Reborn as a powerful generic extender, a Caught by the Grave against those pesky hand traps, 3 Machine Duplication to get more Cell Phones and Telephones into rotation, 2 copies of Junkbox as an archetypal Monster Reborn for your Morphtronic monsters, a Converter to, have another powerful archetypal extender. This targets a machine monster you control and then allows you to apply one of the following effects depending on that monster's battle position. If you targeted an attack position monster, you special summon a Morphtronic from your deck with a different name and place the target back on the top of your deck. And if you targeted a defense position monster, you are able to swap it to attack, special summon a level 4 lower machine from your hand. Most likely will be using that attack position effect, as you're able to kind of nicely reset some soft ones per turn if you are targeting something that isn't Salphon exactly, as you can summon the Salphon and then summon back what you just had to put back on top of your deck to get like an additional Smartphone Search, a Remoten Search, or a Telephone Summon in, which is pretty nice. For Braver equips, you're playing a Metal Silver Armor, a Life Extreme, and a Wrapped in a Supreme Magic Blade. Wrapped in a Metal Silver Armor create a kind of targeting soft lock, and Life Extreme helps in combat as it makes Braver unable to be contested by anything that isn't 4000 or higher, and also gives you that targeted pop I mentioned earlier when the battle position of a monster is changed. We're playing 3 Repair units, Archetypal Premature Burial. You can easily grab this off of OG Power Tool Dragon, discards a Morphtronic and summons a Morphtronic back from the graveyard, equips itself to the target, pretty neat. Already talked about the redeployment for the Machina portion. If you want, you could probably substitute the redeployment with Urgent Schedule, but redeployment's just like, I think, better going first, but once you go second, I think Urgent Schedule probably outshines this card in value by like a lot. In terms of the extra deck, we're playing some known faces in Power Tool Dragon to add those Repair units, Power Tool Braver Dragon to equip the 3 equips I talked about earlier, and to be a targeted monster negate. We are playing the whole suite of Karakuri Shoguns, starting at the bottom here with Bure. All these, when they are synchro summoned, allow you to special summon a Karakuri monster from your deck, which gets you the level 1 tuner onto the board, which, funnily enough, also turns Gadget Gamer into a 1-card Power Tool Braver Dragon. As you're able to make this 7, summon the tuner, make Excel Stardust, summon back like the Telephone or the Karakuri tuner potentially, and from there you're already all the way there to Braver. Funnily enough, Bure has a second effect that once per turn allows you to target a monster on the field and change its battle position, which might come up in this deck as you're able to, maybe swap a Smartphone or Telephone's battle position to either stack your deck or like get some additional graveyard setup and, deck stacking in. Very situational, but it might come up, so that's nice to have. The level 8 is more here to kind of like close the gap. If you find yourself in a position where you can only make an 8, you can make this guy, summon the tuner, and then still climb into a 9. Which, the big 9s you're trying to make are the Braver Dragon, and this guy. The Super Shogun model is 00N Burebu. Also, it has the summon of a Karakuri monster from deck on summon effect, and monsters you control in defense position cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, once per turn, if the battle position of a face-up Karakuri monster you control is changed, you can target a card your opponent controls, banish it, which, if you have a Braver Dragon on the board with all his equips and this guy, and you're banishing this guy to swap this guy's battle position, you are getting a pop off of Life Extreme and a banish off of this guy. Pretty nice. Excess Synchro Stardust here to extend some combo lines, Naturia Beast to lock your opponent out of spells, Musashi here as a good Earth Machine to make and also to ensure some follow-up play sometimes. Earphone is here as a level 4 bridge for Naturia Beast lines. Formula Synchron for some additional draws. As the way it currently is, you kind of have to hard draw the Machina portion, which is a bit sad. We're playing an Underworld Goddess because I really like the card, and having an anti-cheese white woman in your extra deck is always appreciated. An Appaloosa as an endboard piece, a Nightmare Unicorn to maybe make off of Masquerader if you don't find your way to Appaloosa exactly, which is pretty nice. An IP Masquerader to, have a link to. Also, for Unicorn and maybe some additional Appaloosa protection, and a Link Karibo to get some different names on the field for your Appaloosa. For some potential options you could be considering for this deck, Morphtronic Scannon's a card. I don't want to call this good in this deck specifically because it's the Morphtronic Scannon. But you can probably get away with one, and then maybe, you know, if your Gacha Gamer gets negated and you draw into it, you can high roll and say you made Braver Dragon through a hand trap. As mentioned before, you can play Staple instead of Boomboxen if you want to. It really doesn't make a difference in my opinion. You can play a second Karakuri tuner, but I think this deck plays like enough soft or hard garnets already and doesn't need like more of those. You're playing like 5 already. Samurai Destroyer is another good synchro to make in this. If this leaves the field because of an opponent's card, it can revive a machine monster from your graveyard, and is also a pretty sizable 2600 body. Platinum Gadget's a good link to Extender to maybe consider. A double-handed Anger Knuckle is really if you want to suck up to Citadel. You can play traditional Earth Machine pieces. As previously mentioned, I think Urchin Schedule is probably the best one out of these. But if you're considering like any of the ones from Brutal Dozer to Heavy Freight Train, Derek Crane, you might as well play Earth Machine. You can maybe play some more Machina pieces if you want to stick to redeployment. But I wouldn't advise, you know, to do that because Unclasper is kind of a soft garnet. And Overdrive is a trap. And this deck doesn't really appreciate that because you're most likely still looking to combo. And on the topic of those combos, I think it is time to look at some and show you the madness behind this machination. We are starting nice and simple. As I mentioned a couple times during the deck profile, we do have a 1-card Braver line in this deck, which I think is very interesting as a whole and kind of put me on the Karakuri cards, if anything. We're going to normal summon the Gadget Gamer, add a Telephone. Go ahead, Telephone here. If you find a cell phone, in this case I do find a cell phone because Edo Pro doesn't shuffle the deck. But if you, you know, reveal off of Telephone a cell phone, dump it here for additional graveyard setup, you still have 4 other cards in your hand, so you can do a lot with those. You saw me go into the level 7 Karakuri Synchro there to grab the tuner from the deck, which in turn allows me to make Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon to grab back a Telephone from the graveyard. In which case, you know, if you hit a cell phone, you can just summon that in attack position here. And get back the cell phone. Otherwise, you are more than welcome to maybe put this into defense and try and dig for cell phone that way as well. I do definitely hit here because, again, Edo Pro doesn't shuffle the deck in this line. But as you saw, I was easily able to make a power to a Braver Dragon, and, you know, potentially you're also getting a cell phone into rotation to use that. But you still have 4 other cards in hand, so there's like a good bit of extension possibilities. But this is like, I think, something which makes the Karakuris into a very neat kind of extra deck package to play if you're not wanting to, you know, just slam down the, you know, generic suite of extra deck negates, like Crystal Wing, Synchro Dragon, Borrelol, Savage Dragon, and Bar on the floor. But let's, you know, maybe get into some real meat with the combos of this deck and the setups you will be trying to aim for. And this hand is why this deck probably isn't the best one. But, you know, there's, you know, sometimes there's just a way. And we're going to start off with a copy of Machina Redeployment here, getting rid of this repair unit, as we do not have a pitch for that anyways. Machina Package Access, we are going to pitch Citadel for the Fortress to special that, and then we will convert the Fortress away for a cell phone to machine dupe that. We get very lucky off the first cell phone here hitting that Telephone, so we will gladly take that link of this Telephone, this cell phone into a Linkuribo to, you know, potentially have a target for the Telephone if we wanted to trigger that. I do cycle through the cell phones here first, making an IP Masquerader in the process, using the first Telephone to grab back a cell phone to turn 3 of my monsters into an Apolloser. Firing the second Telephone here after missing off of cell phone. Not a big deal, as we do have a couple more triggers in us, and we will go ahead and summon a copy of Boombox in here. We will make a Bure, and I think this line looks very familiar to most of you. We'll, you know, Bure, summon the Karakuri tuner, go into Excel Stardust, Excel Stardust, bring back a Telephone, Telephone bring back a cell phone, and Braver Dragon will equip the whole suite here. We'll go cell phone here, and looking for, you know, Remoten looks pretty good here, but we are looking for most things that are high level and can easily be brought onto the board. We'll grab a smartphone here, banish the cell phone for that, and then put the smartphone on the board, missing the reveals. Summoning a copy of Boombox in here, targeting the earphone target itself to make it a tuner. We'll go Musashi, add back a Telephone for follow-up. And from here on out, we are looking very solid. We did use, funnily enough, the earphone effect to make itself a tuner in this line. But but also use the Musashi to get back a telephone for a potential follow-up turn. Don't play access code in this deck, but this might be, but the Underworld Goddess is probably what you could very well replace for that, to, you know, have easy access code lines on the follow-up. But what we currently are looking at are 3 monster negates on a non-destructible Apollosa, which is pretty good, I think. We do have a Braver negate live, which is pretty nice, but we also have the Karakuri tuner in the graveyard, and we have a Karakuri monster on the board. That is like the most important thing that you will need to remember when you're playing this deck, or, you know, playing the Karakuris in any way in Morphtronics. That you do need to end on a Karakuri monster to get that live, since the tuner does only allow you to target and swap the battle position of a Karakuri monster, which, you know, in turn gives us access to the banish of Burebu and also the pop off of Life Extreme, which is pretty nice. So we do have a bit of very, you know, varied interaction here at the ready for our opponent, but I think we'll get into another replay where I kind of show you what this, you know, very YouTube combo-esque deck really wants to end on. That's a pretty good grip, so let's take a look at what we can do with it. Quite a lot, actually. We'll go ahead and normal summon this copy of Gadget Gamer for a copy of Cellphone, as we already have a Telephone in the hand. We'll use the Gadget Hauler here to get that Cellphone in the grave, as mentioned earlier. You can definitely do that to, you know, use that Telephone to bring back the Cellphone. We'll go once again through the line with the level 7 Karakuri Synchro here, summoning the Shirokunishi out of the deck, going into Exile Synchro Stardust here, bringing back a Telephone, using the Cellphone before going into a Linkuribo, using the Telephone to bring back the Cellphone, and then turning Exile Stardust and this Telephone into a copy of Braver. Using the Cellphone here, finding 2 Machina cards, which is unfortunate, but one of the issues that you will probably run into in this amalgamation of cards. Telephone high rolls here, which is very handy, bringing back this remote to add a smartphone to my hand. And I will try to, you know, ensure follow-up here, because Gadget Gamer is still a copy of Telephone essentially in hand. Since you don't need to summon the Hauler, we can, you know, extend into Burebu here with the help of the level 8 Karakuri Shogun. And we will now see to try and establish a copy of Apollosa. So we'll go ahead and turn Telephone and the smartphone into a Masquerader, summon the smartphone by banishing the other smartphone, adding a copy of Converter here, which I will use to put the smartphone on the top, summon a Cellphone, use the Cellphone, summon back the smartphone, and this is where I get a bit greedy and highly rewarded for it, because I do summon the smartphone in defense here. I do use the smartphone effect in defense, and I find a very particular card off the top, which you will see right now. It's the Machina redeployment. As mentioned, sadly, you don't have a way to access the Machina package in this outside of really hard drawing the redeployment, which I think is the biggest issue. But the Karakuris are cool. Like, those are sick. So yeah, we'll commit all those monsters into an Apollosa. Go ahead and, you know, go for the Machina package here, Fortress Pitch Citadel to get that in the grave. We'll detach the Earphone from the Braver to target this Fortress, swap the battle position, which in turn triggers Life Extreme to pop the Fortress, which triggers Citadel to get that on the board. And if this isn't a YouTube combo, if you've ever seen one, I don't know what is. This didn't involve, you know, Isolde Mill 4, but I think it gets pretty close. So this time we are looking at, you know, essentially the same setup as last time. We do have a 3-mat Apollosa that is indestructible. We do have the Karakuri Shogun here, which with the, you know, tuner engrave is a banish. We still have Braver, which is a monster negate, and the Life Extreme will also trigger when you're going to, you know, trigger your Burebu to once again pop a card. But this time we also have Machina Citadel on the board, which is another board wipe. If you think this deck doesn't interact with back row very much, you are absolutely correct. But that is not really the point of Earth Machine at home. So yeah, let's get back into the deck and maybe talk about some closing thoughts. And with that, we are back with the deck, but what is there really left to say that I already haven't said? This definitely is a pile of cards. Is it a good pile of cards? No, definitely not. There's like a good couple of, you know, very hard bricks that you can find in this deck that you'd usually not find in your average Morphtronic list. Funnily enough, I'd almost call the Machina portion of this the weakest link because you do need to hard draw it. You could definitely remedy this by like playing more of those, but then you also run into like the risk of, you know, bricking more on those. I think like the Karakuri specifically have like really, you know, kind of not really won me over in like a sense that I play them automatically, but I think there's a very neat bit of synergy between, you know, Live Extreme and the level 9 specifically. If you can get, you know, this small little guy here in the graveyard, which isn't very hard to do, as you're easily able to, you know, make like any of these synchros and then just, you know, get him out of the deck. So if you're, you know, fine with like running a couple hard garnets, possibly like cutting the Machina portion altogether, and then maybe like adding in another one of the, I have the tuner right here, and then maybe going up in terms of converters. You could be doing that and then, you know, filling these last 3 spaces with either, you know, additional extenders, maybe a couple more Morphtronic names, or, you know, whatever else you'd like them to be. So there's definitely like a bit of flexibility there. But for the most part, I think that'll be it. You do have like some rather impressive setups, and I do have to say that, you know, Fortress still feels like pretty good in the deck. Citadel gives you some surprising amounts of grind game. So, you know, that's kind of neat. But overall, this probably won't do much more than, you know, end on some pretty funky boards, but the deck already does that pretty well. So yeah, with, you know, all that being said, what are your thoughts? Leave those down in the comments below. And, you know, maybe specifically, I do like the Karakuris a bit, so, you know, maybe leave your thoughts on those specifically while you're down there as well, as I do think they offer like a bit of, you know, very neat theory crafting around those. But yeah, with all that being said, I will thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye.